Hey folks, welcome to Gaming Garbage. So this is going to be March news. So I went over quite a bit of it. I combed over quite a few hours. I really shouldn't consolidate it all into one day of research, but I was at work and I had the time, so I did. So yeah, we're going to be looking at anything from games coming out to games that have been out to updates on games, companies, layoffs, any other type of gaming news like virtual reality. We're going to be covering a lot of it today, so expect probably at least an hour, which I'm hoping it's going to be less than an hour, but we'll see. But this is actually quite big, and there's a lot going on. So March was a really big month for news. If you haven't watched February's is posted too on my YouTube channel. You can follow me here on Twitch at Don't Tread on Thee, or you can follow a link or find me on YouTube at handle Gaming Garbage 22. And follow either of those or both of them, whichever, doesn't matter to me. And whatever floats your boat. But on YouTube, everything is saved. So anything I've ever done since I started my archive on YouTube is going to be on there. So I got a Wulong Fallen Dynasty demo that I looked at. I have most of Dead Space. I got to finish Chapter 2, 3, and 4. Chapter 5 is when I started archiving my videos. And then I got some Elden stuff on there. Elden Ring I'll be using when I kind of have something on my mind and I want to chat about it, or just want to kill some time. And then I will be continuing Atomic Heart later this year. I'm going to be looking at the Arkham Knight series, or the Batman Arkham series, so we can get to Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad 2, since they're made by the same universe and partially the same company. And then we're going to be looking at Halo as well, because I think that's a great way to look at the kind of the changing of the industry through that series, because it's went so long. And then also on there's kind of the state of gaming and a comparison between the old Star Wars Battlefronts and the new ones. So those are on there too for you. And then I just figured out how to do shorts, so I will be adding those as well. But let's go ahead and get to gaming news. So the Dead Space remake sold really well. Better than expected. It had really good reviews. Pretty much everybody gave it a 9.5 or bigger or better. There were some issues that I played with the Dead Space remake. There were a few glitches on some of the animations, and then there were a few areas where there was a considerable drop in frame rate, but it wasn't horrible. Overall, they stuck really good to the game, and they did an excellent job on building everything from the ground up. And they tweaked a few things that kind of made sense, like some differences in button mapping that made it a little easier, and then they also redid some of the levels a little bit, and then they also changed up some of the dialogue. Of course, they had different casting, except Isaac Clarke was the same guy, which was great, and then they also filled in some of the gaps of why something happened, or kind of like if you ever did play at the beginning, the ship that you fly in on to repair the Ishimura blows up, and in the remake they actually show why. They actually show what's going on with the reactor core, which was great. So there were just some small changes like that that really made the game feel fresh. The resolution and fidelity quality was extremely good. Frame rate stayed actually pretty high. And then game was still $70, which was pretty expensive. For what it was, I think it would be better priced as like $60 or $50 as a remake. But yeah, this is done by Motive Studios, and yeah, they did an excellent job. They also did Star Wars Squadrons, which is their first real full game that they did by themselves, which was great. They did work on some other projects. And now they're actually working on doing 2 games. So they're going to be doing Iron Man, we already know that, an Iron Man game. And then they're also just put out a survey if there needs to be a Dead Space 2 remake. And honestly, I think there does. I think there does. A lot of people don't have the 360 games, and honestly, they're kind of hard to find, especially number 1. And so yeah, doing remakes and reintroducing a whole nother set of folks to the franchise 15 years later from the origins of it I think is great. I mean, Dead Space 1 came out in 2008, we're in 2023 now, so it's been plenty long, and a lot of the fans that played it, like myself, really enjoyed it. So yeah, we'd love to see a Dead Space 2 and a Dead Space 3, and honestly, if they can continue with the series, that'd be great. So we know that there's actually 2 sections of the studio out of Motive. We got one section that's going to be working on Iron Man, and Motive is actually hiring right now to continue to work on the Iron Man space for concept art and programmers and developers. And then they're also looking at having the team that did the Dead Space remake, probably, I say probably, because they're just doing the survey right now, going to be doing the Dead Space 2 remake, and I'm so excited for that. Let's see. Battlefield. So those that do DICE, DICE will be looking at having 2 studios now. So they're going to have 2 different teams. One team's going to focus on single player, and the other is going to focus on multiplayer. DICE and EA have understood, thank goodness, especially through the last few iterations, like Battlefield 5 did not have a really solid campaign. The campaign for Battlefield 1 was really good, and the other ones before that were really good. But Battlefield 5 was kind of, just felt kind of tacked on a little bit. You know, they had 3 different little storylines that they could do and kind of show aspects of the war, but they weren't overly long. You know, of course, the big push was Battlefield multiplayer with the large areas and maps and different types of equipment and weapons and vehicles and all that jazz. And of course, that's a main staple of Battlefield. I mean, that's why we all loved it. It's just because the large battles and the immersiveness. But yeah, I mean, in 2042, they had the opportunity to do a campaign and kind of flesh out some of the story and the characters and create some development there, some kind of like bonding and experience for the players with the story and with the game, and they totally threw that away. So 2042 launched horribly, and so with that launch, they now understand that it's like, hey, we kind of need to bring single player back. And that was one of the things that I mentioned at the beginning of the year, was that I believed one thing we were going to see is that single players were going to come back, that campaigns were going to come back, because we had an industry that was so focused on creating the multiplayer experience and creating the store and showing it off to your buds or the enemy that you just put down and you're going to teabag over, right? But they're missing the essence of what got us all into gaming in the first place, and it's storytelling. It's why before games we liked movies, and before that, why we liked books. I mean, we like a good story, and if you strip the story out of the game, there's just nothing there. It's unimportant, bland, hollow. There's just nothing to engage with. So finally, I think some studios, thank goodness EA and DICE, they're some of the big players, they're figuring out that, you know, campaign and storytelling needs to come back, because other games like Vanguard was okay, and then we had other games like Siege and Rainbow Six Extraction. They didn't have stories, and they were horrible. Siege was pretty good, but it was for a niche market. You know, and it was good for what it is, but even Siege wasn't a full game. They had a campaign that they totally scrapped it was supposed to be called Rainbow Six Patriots, and the story was too closely resembling to the events of the Boston Marathon bombing, and so they had to scrap the entire campaign, and took a year to kind of salvage the title and just called it Siege, just kept the multiplayer aspect. And then they just kind of ran with it for a while. And then they made Extraction after that, and for the franchise, and it's just not good. Extraction was a brutal game to practice. So thankfully, we're starting to see single player come back, which is great. And I really think, you know, like last year, some of the games that were best touted were storytelling games. Modern Warfare 2 is in there, you know, the remake, but we also had ones like God of War and like Elden Ring, and even Stray, which worked on telling a story, and you got to experience the story with engaging with the game and the characters. And that's the whole point. Let's see, Elden Ring also has sold 20 million copies. Congratulations. DLC, I believe, will likely be Q4 of 2023 at the earliest. The reason I think that is because they're going to release Armored Core 6 first. They haven't released an Armored Core game for almost 10 years, and most people don't know what Armored Core is. But if you're old like moi and you're into robots, you absolutely know what Armored Core is. Armored Core is basically a futuristic world where resources are scarce, and there are these massive machines like Mech Warrior or like Pacific Rim the movie or Gundam, if you've resonated with any of those. And that's basically what it is. Except it tells a story and there's missions, and you can decide to kind of work through the story, kind of like Elden Ring or Dark Souls, by reading descriptions and kind of reading the messages. And some of the stories, of course, told through cinematics, but not like Final Fantasy or like Fable or Metal Gear Solid. So you kind of have to read in between the lines. If you're just there for the action, you can do that too. But Armored Core 6 is confirmed from software that is going to come out first, and then they will release the DLC for Elden Ring. And we know that the pre-order is available for Armored Core 6, and it's looking like September, October of this year. And so the DLC has to come out after that. If they do it justice and they don't feel rushed, I think we could see it by the holidays. But with releasing a game already later this year, and then maybe they could, but I think it's likely that it'll be Q1 at the 2-year anniversary for Elden Ring. And that's just to make sure that this Elden Ring expansion, they call it, not DLC, expansion, is just ready. And so it's probably going to be a pretty big expansion, and it's going to change or alter the game in a way, and flesh out more of the story and the characters. And so, yeah, I'm excited for that. Hogwarts Legacy sold 12 million copies in 2 weeks. Congratulations to them. They've sold more copies by now, I'm sure. People also really enjoyed the game. The boycott basically didn't work. They screamed loud and proud, but, people voted with their money. And that's honestly the power that we have, folks. We vote with our money, not with social media. So, and there is going to be no DLC for Hogwarts Legacy. And that's because the studio wanted to focus on just creating a good game and getting it out there without any problems. And, yeah, that's why it sold so much. Because they actually did a good job and did a lot of fanfare. Let's see, Suicide Squad. Oh, boy. So Suicide Squad is looking pretty bad. So we got, with PlayStation's kind of showcase, we got to see some gameplay footage and hear a little bit more from the developers of kind of how they designed the game and why. And this is what we know. It'll be a live service game, so there will be things that will come up every so often, probably once a season, whatever that looks like, because Halo Infinite has totally remapped that for us on how long a season is. There's going to be a shop tab. There will be 4-player co-op. And it looks like a loot shooter like Division or like Borderlands. Now, for those type of games, it worked for those type of games, which is great, but this is the same studio, Rocksteady Games, that has done the Batman Arkham series. And so for them to totally shift with kind of this live service, shop, microtransaction aspect is really kind of a bummer. And in the gameplay, we saw that the characters were all using the same guns. They were kind of jumping and flying around. It's very, very fast-paced. There's nothing really unique about the characters. And the special abilities and kind of the personality of each character that you can play isn't really put first for the character. It's just the cosmetic for the character. You can tell who they are, but they kind of play and jump and move all the same. The stats are a little different, but like Captain Boomerang uses guns, Deadshot uses guns, Harley uses guns, and Sharkman or Shark Boy uses guns too. And so there's really nothing different or unique there, and it's all third person over the shoulder for a lot of it. They did allow you to move quickly around the city, which is great, and the open world looks really, really good. But the gunplay does look somewhat kind of mediocre and boring. And then a large part of the game, too, once you're dealing with anything bigger than a humanoid, is that you're shooting what look like purple pimples, to help take down part of the enemy or part of the mini bosses or bosses that we're going to have. So it's really quite a disappointment on kind of how they designed it. It's like they totally got a different team in there, and they're trying something else or jumping on the bandwagon late. I don't know what's going on, but it didn't look like a Rocksteady game. I'm sorry. It just does not look that good. So people, too, also believed this, and so it's delayed a second time. There was a lot of backlash with thumbs down on like YouTube and stuff. And so now we're looking at likely Q4 for this year in time for the holidays. And I don't think it's going to be September because otherwise they're going to be competing with Starfield. And I don't think really too many games are going to want to compete in the same month as Starfield. People are going to think September and think Starfield, which is going to be by Bethesda and has been a game that's been promoted for quite some time. Some sad news, in a way, is that E3 is canceled. It's actually the first time it's canceled because of the lack of involvement from third-party studios and companies. So E3 has been around for a long time. I remember it as a kid in like middle school, high school, and I always wanted to go, but never had the ability to. It cost money to go down to LA and go to the convention center. And it was always the place to be. I mean, everybody was there. Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, any other kind of like small company branching out and trying to get into the gaming space. Everybody was there. And now we have already Sony not going to be there. Xbox isn't, Microsoft isn't going to be there. Nintendo confirmed earlier this year that they're not going to be there. And then we just heard that Ubisoft isn't going to be there either. And so these are all huge players. And part of the reason for this is because trouble in recent years, issues with communication and just starting up and getting things set up, it's been quite frustrating. It costs money to be at the convention. And then what COVID showed us with the lockdowns is that we don't need to be in a physical place to show anything anymore. We can do it right from our house or right from a studio on site at on company grounds or from campus. And so that's what a lot of companies have been doing. They still wanted to showcase during COVID, and they still wanted to share things the year after when some lockdowns were still in effect in some areas. And two, people were used to being home. They didn't necessarily have to move or work, and planes were kind of a hassle and a mess, and gas was super expensive. And so were some other things starting to ramp up, of course, too. And so, yeah, E3 has just kind of been supplanted by digital showcasing. And so that's what's going on. So I don't think they're ever going to come back, which is kind of a bum. Let's see, Modern Warfare 2. So we got that really not that long ago. But we know that one of the makers of Call of Duty, Sledgehammer Games, which made Vanguard garbage, is also going to be working on DLC. The kicker is that the DLC is so big, someone got a promotion for this. The DLC is so big, it has so much content that they're going to make it a premium release later this year. Again, just before the holidays. It's going to be $70, and they're going back on their word on saying, hey, we're going to take a break from making a Call of Duty game, but here we go. So this is going to be the Modern Warfare 2 remake. It's not the official name, but it's basically part 2 of Modern Warfare 2. There are going to be some new maps. There's going to be, I think, some new weapons too. There's probably going to be some new game modes implemented as they've been doing that throughout the seasons. And then they're going to add to the campaign of Modern Warfare 2. So, are we now going to have like a Modern Warfare 2 franchise? When are we going to get to Modern Warfare 3? Because if we kind of think of it that way, we have like Destiny and Halo Infinite at this point, and there's other games too, like World of Tanks or like EVE Online or World of Warcraft or even Warhammer, where they kind of keep the game going. And this is becoming more popular or more common. And so are we going to start to see this in Call of Duty games? I don't know. Man, I hope not. I really don't want to see that at all. Again, I don't think it's super likely, but the fact that they're making basically a part 1 and a part 2 now of Modern Warfare 2, I'm not excited for that. I would rather have it as just DLC that I paid for instead of a brand new $70 game. Because come on, folks, Modern Warfare 2 just came out in like October of last year. And now they're wanting us to buy another one within 12 months? That's another $70. Are you off your rock? Nobody's got money for that. That's insane. Something else too is PlayStation Virtual Reality 2 launched. I have seen a couple of reviews, just see what influencers, how they feel about their game and stuff, and they think it's comfortable, it fits nice, it works well. The problem is that there are really no games for the platform. So it launched, and then, by the way, this is $550 on top of your $500 or $600 PlayStation 5. And that's if you actually paid that price. If you paid like last year or the year before, you probably paid closer to $600 or $900, maybe even $1,000. And so it's not like this is cheap. It's not cheap hardware. It is cool. It does work pretty well. It's not exactly perfect, but there's eye tracking and all sorts of stuff. But again, there's not really anything for the platform. So here we buy something and don't have any games to play for it except for a few demos and maybe some other kind of like indie games, but no full games yet. And this was the problem with the first virtual reality, the Morpheus, which I bought, which I loved, really enjoyed that. It actually worked pretty good. But again, it came with a lot of games that were either restricted by Sony or they couldn't be full games because they were worried about seizures or whatever else, dizziness, etc. Or they kind of made demo discs that have multiple demos on there or kind of short, fun games. And while it was fun, and virtual reality, in my opinion, is extremely exciting, and I think the future eventually of gaming, Sony has just kind of been holding it back. And in the meantime, these units didn't sell very well. They only sold about 200,000 units. That is not very much. They were hoping to get be closer to about 1 million or so, and they're nowhere near that number. And they're hoping, by the end of the year to get to 2 million, and I don't think that's going to happen because who's got $550 for something that doesn't have any games for it? And a lot of the games that are slotted for it are supposed to launch in September. So that's not helpful either. So why buy it now when there's nothing to play? So yeah, that's a huge issue. Plus, there's other issues with Meta has just put a bad taste in everybody's mouth with just pushing their platform and what they're going to do. They're making their employees unhappy. They've been firing people. I mean, I think they fired, 11,000 last time, and they're going to fire another 10,000. That's 21,000 people, plus the 5,000 job openings that they took off of listings. And so, yeah, that's 26,000 positions, potentially, that are now gone from the company. And, Meta is costing them tens of billions of dollars. This is a project that now has like $25 billion sunk into it. And what they've showed just doesn't look good. It's not ready. No one's excited. They have a really low retention rate for their virtual reality. And so, again, why get a virtual reality headset for PlayStation when there's nothing to play? Yeah, it's not good. Wolf Among Us 2 is delayed until 2024. So the reason for this is because they didn't want to burn out their employees and they wanted to avoid a time crunch. That's kind of become the norm as you guys know. But yeah, they really didn't want to do that. If you haven't played Wolf Among Us #1, it is kind of a different way to tell a story. It's very story driven. But it is kind of a more fun, relaxing way to engage and enjoy the story and characters. And then this #2 is going to pick up pretty much where that left off. But now it's going to be 2024. Oh, let's see. So YouTube and Square Enix both have new CEOs. Congratulations to them. But both of the new ones that they hired love NFTs. Why? Didn't we already learn that NFTs can be hacked, that a lot of them are scams, that a lot of them don't mean anything? I mean, we've learned this through Bored Apes. Ubisoft quit their, crystal NFTs, whatever they called them, I forget. But yeah, they were supposed to be attached to items in their Ghost Recon Breakpoint game, which isn't too bad of a game. It's not perfect, but it's still a pretty good game. But boy, the whole NFT thing would have totally screwed that pooch. And I'm really glad they didn't go through with that. NFTs have had a horrible time. There's been, new game developers that have tried making a game and they've been hacked with, real costs in the tens or hundreds of millions of dollars being stripped out of the company or out of the exchanges because they didn't have the correct security. People, too, have run off with all of the crypto and then sold it somewhere else. I mean, and then, yeah, it's just a total mess. And Bored Ape has not done well either. Again, that's just going to be a dying puppy, unfortunately. So, yeah, I'm not super excited that they love NFTs, too. And I wish I could say that was the only NFT news, but we'll get to more. Don't worry. Let's see. Luminous. They were the ones that made Forspoken. And they did promise DLC in May, so that will be happening. They're working on constructing that right now. But as soon as the DLC's out, the studio is going to shutter, and all of those people, or at least most of them, are going to port over to the main Square Enix headquarters and be utilized there. So the game did so bad within 2 months of the game coming out, Square Enix is like, yeah, Luminous is done. we're not gonna be using them anymore. So yeah, that's Forspoken did a horrible thing, and I think they could have had more sales too if it had been for Xbox. But Sony's really good about sharing, and like they're wanting Microsoft to do with buying Activision Blizzard. And so, yeah, they didn't have it for Xbox, and so it was only for PlayStation and 4 and 5, and it just didn't sell enough. It failed really bad. And this hasn't been the only failure that Square Enix has had. Kingdom Hearts 3 didn't really sell that good compared to the other ones. A lot of people, including myself and some other people that I've chatted with, have kind of gotten lost into the story. And I just couldn't get into it. I was just so lost with what was going on. And then they've also sold a lot of IPs to Embracer. So Embracer now owns Tomb Raider and Deus Ex and Thief and Legacy of Kain and quite a few others for $300 million. And that happened last year, and this was just for probably Square Enix to get some cash so they could actually kind of keep things going and maybe finish Forspoken and actually start and finish some other projects. And yeah, this is a real problem. So they've sold a bunch of IPs. Embracer is now the #1 in most active game developers. They have 10,000 of them. Embracer also has 124 internal studios. They have 230 games, and 30 of them are AAAs. So Embracer just added more for the IPs to deal with and use. And yeah, that was a good steal for them. So with these changes, getting rid of Luminous, selling these IPs that they weren't utilizing, and getting a new CEO, quote, the focus is going to be on blockchain, AI, and cloud performance. Again, there's blockchain and NFTs and goody. Cannot wait. And the previous CEO was pretty big on NFTs. but he didn't really utilize a lot of that, thank goodness. But the new one is even more into NFTs than the last guy. And so now, too, we've heard that Symbiogenesis is going to be a new game that's going to be coming out, and the whole premise is NFTs. Are you kidding? They want to create a market, they want to create a product, which is basically your profile pic along with your characters that you have in the game and possibly some cosmetics too that you pick up while you play. But what they showcased doesn't look good. It looks really trashy, 2D, flat, boring. There's just nothing there. And so, yeah, Symbiogenesis is going to be coming out pretty soon. I think it's coming out in May, and that's going to be a whole NFT craze. That's going to flop, I hope. Let's see, on to the second page. EA is going to be laying off 200 game testers that were all testers for Apex Legends. That's not good. So is it Apex going to keep going? Are they going to keep utilizing people? I mean, everybody in the industry right now is kind of making cutbacks. We've seen that in Google. We saw the Stadia disappear. It's dead. We've seen that in Sony, Microsoft, Ubisoft, EA, DICE, 343. I mean, kind of everybody is cutting back some. So that's kind of expected, but 200 testers for Apex? That's huge. Hopefully that's not most of them. But, you know, maybe in the end we'll see. And they also are going to be closing Apex Mobile. Yay, mobile game going down. I'm not a fan of those because I think they're cheap. I think the quality isn't quite there. And they monetize the crap out of them. So Apex Mobile is going to go bye-bye. That will be, again, in May of 2023. And may I say, too, that quite a few games have already been shuttered. A lot of these live service. So in February, we got tons of announcements, about 10 of them, of different games that weren't going to be supported anymore or completely shut down. And we even had some last year that didn't make it either, like Babylon's Fall. So yeah, things are not going good in the industry, folks. If by any chance you happen to be a developer or thinking about getting into the industry, maybe kind of just get a different job for a while, a job that's secure, and just kind of fiddle with that for a while and kind of let this whole recession thing blow over. Because if the banking system, the inflation that we still have all over the world, and then all of these kind of cutbacks in the tech industry, crypto was first, and now we're looking at entertainment. It might be just a good time to hold off, until you try to go for gaming or writing or something to do with the entertainment industry, because people need food and energy, and they need their cars to be fixed, but they don't need 10 different subscriptions to a service. You know what I mean? They can do without that when push comes to shove. Oh, and this was crazy too. After laying off 200 testers, Apex, I couldn't believe this. Apex, the creators of Apex and the developers, they're planning to keep it going for another 10 years. 10 years minimum, maybe 15. And this is by, Respawn Entertainment. And I just can't believe that. Apex has already been going for what? They kind of rode on the Fortnite craze and PUBG and, oh my word. An extra 10 to 15 years. That is nuts. And on top of that, they're going to be making a third Respawn studio. So they're hiring positions right now. And so yeah, there's going to be 3 of them. And one is going to be probably just dedicated to making Apex. They did say, though, that in the development of Apex, each character takes about a year and a half. So they'll probably alternate back and forth maybe between all 3 to put one out, maybe every 6 months. A new character, but a year and a half to do a character, that seems kind of insane. Especially when the maps really don't change that much. In other news, an Austrian court ruled that FIFA loot boxes in the game are considered gambling. So the lawsuit had about 1,000 people in it, and it was against Sony because all of the loot boxes for FIFA were purchased through the Sony store. And this is where the issue comes from. Sony has to reimburse anywhere from 800 euros to 85,000 euros. And think of that. Somebody spent 85,000 euros on loot boxes in FIFA. Y'all, I hope they got a legendary or whatever they were looking for. That just sounds insane. And this was something I noted too at the beginning of the year, that some of the changes I think we were seeing or will be coming in the industry is that, again, these publishers and developers are seeing that the whales are really the ones that spend the money. It's not like you and me that can spend maybe max a few hundred a year between Xbox Live or PlayStation and Essential or and the games and whatever, and some games for sale and maybe one or two new ones. But I mean, the whales that have thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. And what I worry about is that the industry becomes focused on, sating the whales instead of looking out for the common gamer like myself. If it's really all about money and greed, companies are just gonna push toward that. It's the same with the companies that's kind of like Ferrari and Lamborghini and Lancaster, or like Shelby. They really only, or like Bugatti maybe, they only really cater to those that really have a ton of money. And they don't care about, mass production. They just want to make a few cars and probably be more efficient at making money. And just having to have a few sales a year to keep their company going and making it profit. So I would rather have the industry be like Toyotas and Hondas and like old Fords from the 90s and early 2000s. And the reason is because they made vehicles for the masses that worked, were functional, and did a good job of doing their job. It's not like every car was a Swiss Army knife and, does everything but isn't really good at anything. Honda and Toyota, they made their cars based off of the consumer and what they wanted. And that's why I appreciate the Japanese. And, it's the same reason why I like Dark Souls, Sekiro, Metal Gear Solid, and Elden Ring and Armored Core. A lot of those are from the same studio, but Final Fantasy games too. And along with Monster Hunter. I mean, these are games that actually have good quality and they're focusing on the consumer. And that's what we want, folks. We want the industry to cater to us, to make a good product and let the money flow in. Just like Hogwarts Legacy too. But I mean, if it switches to just what the rails can get, we're going to further see microtransactions, up the wazoo that we're going to have to pay for just to be a part of, just to engage. And I don't want to be a part of that. And another thing, too, is I really think we're going to get to a point where it's nanotransactions. I mean, I'll get to that in a minute. I'll bring that back up. But yeah, I kind of worry about this for the industry. So yeah, they're focusing on these whales. Another issue, too, is EA was not willing to pay $1 billion for the FIFA name. They wanted $1 billion just to use their name this time. And EA's like, nope, we're going to totally call it something else. So I'm curious to see what their game is going to be this year. But yeah, the reason the Austrian court ruled in favor of the lawsuit is really that this whole system of loot boxes, there's a way to create a secondary market of resale with what you get in the game. And so you can totally circumvent Sony and FIFA and start cutting out those profits so that you have your own little core group somewhere else, creating another market and just trading within that third market, that third secondary and tertiary markets. And the resale is really dangerous because it can totally destroy overall sales for a company and not make it profitable. And I really think this is why, I think it was Diablo 2 or Diablo 3, this is why they got rid of the market where you could actually make money in the type of economy and markets that they had. If you worked hard and got an item, you could sell it to some other player and they could actually pay you real cash for it. And yeah, part of it's probably hacking, and there were some glitches too, but that is part of the issue. If you're going to make money off of something, you need to make sure that what you're selling stays in your market so that you can create a healthy market where you keep making some revenue. Otherwise, you're just going to go out of business after a while. Then there won't be any product. So that was the Austrian court's decision and why. But yeah, loot boxes need to go away. If you haven't watched yet, we looked at Star Wars Battlefront 2, the remake. And I talked about in there how loot boxes killed that game. And I don't think we'll ever see another Star Wars Battlefront. And I'm really sad about that. Because Battlefront was such an amazing franchise for its time when it first came out. The immersion, again, the larger battles, it was built for the player. And then we looked at the remakes, and they're just not as good. So you can look at each one of those if you want. They're on my YouTube channel. But yeah, those loot boxes, man, they really screwed the pooch on Battlefront 2. Let's see, in other news, Halo Infinite finally has a Season 3. Did anybody keep up with that? I didn't. I was totally surprised. I hadn't even thought about Halo Infinite, honestly. You're getting 3 maps, 1 new gun, and 100 levels of Battle Pass. And another thing you're getting more colors. They call them coats for your armor. And when I heard that you can buy colors as a cosmetic, I burst out laughing in the lab because, I mean, to get armor, weapon, or whatever, and then we started seeing these charms, okay, but I mean, monetizing colors. Like, could you get any more basic? Like, are you really that hard up? It used to be in the older Halo games, and we'll see this, like in Halo 3. All of the colors were free. All of the weapons were free. You didn't have to work for them. They were there in the game. You didn't have to wait for another season, right? For new maps or a new game mode. I mean, you got the game in its entirety. And I can't wait to show that. Because I feel like today, the younger ones, you guys don't know what you're missing. The great golden age of gaming, I feel like, is gone. And in order for it to come back, in order for us to be heard again, we have to vote with our money. And, by yourself, yeah, there isn't a single studio or publisher that cares about your few $100 or $1,000 a year. But when there are millions or tens of millions that are now saying no to NFTs, no to live service, taking a look at previews first before they pre-order or even buy the game at launch, that is really going to save your money. And that's really going to tell the industry and publishers and developers, hey, you boogered it up. You're screwing my franchise or the game I was excited for, like Battlefield. Okay, Battlefield is absolutely one of my favorites. And they totally screwed it on Battlefield 2042. Almost don't even want to buy another Battlefield. Because I don't know if it can ever go back to what it was like with Bad Company. And if any of you know Bad Company, hoorah, baby. Love those. So yeah, Halo Infinite. Season 3 comes, and it'll go too. And 343, I mentioned in February news that they also laid off quite a few developers, but they're going to continue on with making content, but I don't think it's going to get better, folks. And what Season 3 has in it, I think, is a great example of that. In other news, I thought this was interesting. Most of us probably know Dr. Disrespect, but he's making a PvP game. So I was kind of interested in this at first until I figured out that there are digital collectibles. And basically, it's another NFT market. And the idea is to find items in a map, and then with these particular or potential expensive or valuable items worth real money in a market outside of the match, you got to exfil to get out of there to keep the item. And then you can sell the item on a market in the video game. And so there's a few issues with this, because again, as we already mentioned with NFTs, some of the exchanges, there's been a lot of scams. Some of the games, they've been hacked and they've lost money because it's all done on blockchain, like Ethereum, for example. But yeah, what about cheaters and hackers? What about people that are going to cheat in the game, like in Tarkov, or like Fortnite or Modern Warfare 2 or whatever? And then what about the fact, too, that all of the NFT and crypto markets are basically down like 80-90% from where they were. I mean, if you bought anywhere at any time, you're very, very likely down money. And that is brutal. And it's like you're not getting it back. And we've seen, too, with FTX, and we've seen with Genesis and Celsius and Tether and oh man, right on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, oh yeah, BlockFi. All of these exchanges and cryptos, they all blew up because there's no money. The only reason it works is because you're going to be able to sell it to someone else that is willing to pay more. But it doesn't do anything for you. It really doesn't help generate cash flow. It's not actually limited, right? You can just make more. I mean, I couldn't even believe some of these had like a burn, they called them, where, once a month or once a quarter, the company just took some of the tokens in the exchange and destroyed them. And then, the valuation of the total over a smaller supply automatically makes the value go up. So if you get in early, it's great. But, the people that just start, it's not that great for them, especially when people start figuring out that it's pretty much a digital pyramid scheme, and just start selling, baby, because if the person you want to sell it to doesn't want to pay more than what you paid for, you lose money. And that's why the NFT market is basically dead. Almost every single NFT that's been out there, from Logan Paul to Bored Ape to whatever else, is basically down 90% or more. And then, how is Dr. Disrespect going to handle all of this? And when NFTs are not popular, how is he going to sell a game that's all around this digital collectible? Again, we've heard it all before. It's the same thing. It's just, we already know what it's about. It's about greed. It's about money. And the people that start it are the ones that walk out rich every time. Even Binance is in trouble now. And they're the biggest crypto exchange in the world. Let's see. Oh, this was interesting. So YouTube has acknowledged that their cursing filter was too extreme and strict than what they expected. So they created these algorithms and they basically let fly, and it ended up doing too much. And so now they're making adjustments. They're making a formal apology. But my question is, are they making people whole for the videos that were demonetized that shouldn't have been? I highly doubt it. Because I bet you with everybody else, they don't have that type of cash right now. So, but at least YouTube is working on fixing it. So, hey, you'll be able to use some curse words without being taken down. And I think kind of the age of censorship is somewhat lessening too. You couldn't even say COVID. You couldn't say, death or murder or kill or whatever. I mean, it's just getting insane. But yeah, I guess we'll see if this video gets, blocked or whatever with those words I said. Come on, YouTube. Good luck. I'm barely alive on YouTube, so I've just started. So yeah, I should be fine. But yeah, we'll see. Let's see. Oh yeah, this was good news. European regulators, so they're still working with Microsoft and Sony, that whole thing of Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard. Well, they made a statement that said they didn't see an issue with Microsoft buying them for $69 billion. An official decision still needs to be made, which will be made later this year in the second half. But Microsoft has agreed that they will make long-term contracts for certain IPs with certain platforms like Nintendo and Sony in order to actually get the deal to go through. But Microsoft has said explicitly, look, we don't want to necessarily ban our market and make our market smaller with things that we want to sell. We want to have as big of a market as possible. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't make future games in some of those franchises, right, that are just exclusive, but the one that's been a heavy hitter for exclusives has been Nintendo, and then right behind that has been Sony. And yeah, Microsoft hasn't necessarily been a super exclusive company. I mean, they were one of the first ones to say, hey, customers want cross-platform. Let's do that. And Sony's holding up, the index finger, saying, no, we don't want to do that. We like how much money and how much market share we have with PlayStation 4. So, yeah, I mean, with Microsoft's behavior, they have done a few things where, for a few years, and then made a few IPs exclusive, but making Call of Duty exclusive, I don't think they'll do that, because they will cut out millions, or if not tens of millions of people all over the world that are willing to sink money into Call of Duty franchise. I mean, it's just the most sold and bought and microtransaction franchise out there. The data supports that. So anyway, that's interesting. So we're finally working on a conclusion on that news. Microsoft and Activision, both those stocks went up pretty big that day, and that's how I found out about the news. Let's see. Take-Two Interactive is also doing layoffs. We don't know how many, but they said they're laying off people to align with their more long-term goals. So it seems like they're trimming the fat. They're maybe getting rid of some projects or canceling some projects that they haven't made known yet. And yeah, they plan to stick around. But, if you don't have the cash or the money, then, yeah, you can't really keep the employees. And we had this huge hiring push. We had all this free extra stimulus money and stuff from the government with the COVID lockdowns. And now we're having the inverse of that. And that isn't necessarily anybody's fault except for the Fed and the Biden administration. But yeah, that's going to happen. You're going to have all of this kind of bubble and stimulus and way too much money all at the same time. And guess what? People are going to buy stuff. And that's why inflation is where it is today. And so you got to be able to, you got to be able to cut back to stay alive. And that's what a lot of companies are doing. Yeah, it's not just the gaming industry anymore. It's starting to kind of be everybody. Let's see. Meta has lowered their Quest Pro price. So they have these, again, virtual reality headsets. They started at $1,500. Ooh, we did mention that last year. Way steep of a price. Now they're about $1,000. So that's a pretty good price cut. But during the holidays last year, they saw a 90% drop in sales. Ouch. See, overall, VR is not doing well. And during this recession, it's a bad time to really start trying to push a new tech. Because it costs money. It's expensive. The R&D that goes into it is huge. And you got to recoup some of that and eventually be profitable. But, I think Meta is going to have a major problem. They have seen a few more uptick in sales because of this drop in price point. But again, it's not enough. Let's see, a new game coming out in May is Lord of the Rings Gollum. So initially, this was just showcased as a Sony game, but I did see that it is also going to be coming out on Xbox. So this is going to come out for the previous gen, Xbox One and PlayStation 4, and it's also going to come out on the current gen, PlayStation 5 and Series X. And so the whole premise of this game is that the story is going to be following Gollum before the Fellowship of the Ring. So he's lost the ring, and it'll be telling his story of going to Khazad-dûm. I'm not a super huge Lord of the Rings fan, so I don't know all of the fancy words and lingo and everything. But it's going to be, they're going to probably look at Shelob. They're going to be looking at some of the story that we get to hear and see a little bit about in the Two Towers. And yeah, we're going to be following also the development of how Gollum came to be and Smeagol and how that interaction is. So we're going to be looking pretty introspectively into Gollum and Smeagol as characters and kind of the struggle there. And throughout the gameplay, you're going to have choices on basically which one you're going to listen to, and that will have effects on the game for in the future. So depending on how you play, it will have, small or big outcomes later throughout the gameplay. Most of the visuals actually looked pretty good. The gameplay they showed still isn't quite perfect. There's still some issues there. The cutscene still looked fairly good. The frame rate was okay. Again, this is something that I see a lot with current gen, is that, the amount of polygons are pushed a lot. The resolution is pushed a lot. The luster and fidelity of the images is pushed. And so to even just get to a consistent 30 frames is just tough. And again, I don't think we're going to hit that. It looked more like it was around 25. Maybe it's sometimes 20. So you can check it out yourself. You can take a peek at it on YouTube. I ended up watching those today. Let's see. And this is made by Daedalic Entertainment. So they've been around since 2008. And I took a look at the games that they've already made since then, and I didn't recognize a single one. So they don't have a huge hitter yet. And so this could be a better hitter because it takes place in Lord of the Rings, and they did seem somewhat knowledgeable about the Lord of the Rings lore. So I think they're going to do a good job with the story. I don't think they're going to go Rings of Power like Amazon did. Thank goodness. But yeah, they're going to keep it recognizable like Hogwarts Legacy was for Harry Potter. The game is also going to be $60. So that's kind of nice. Yeah, the release date is going to be May 25th. So, okay, on to more NFT news. These is horrible. Pokemon, the company that owns Pokemon, is currently looking to hire somebody that is a specialist and knowledgeable in NFTs and the metaverse. So we all know what's coming. I mean, I really don't have anything more to say about that. And to be connected and familiar with Web3 and large investors, end quote. Oh, man. I was really hoping NFTs were dead, folks. Now, there is a possibility that some of these plans were drafted up a couple of years ago, or even last year, with some of these NFT things, and, they're coming to fruition, and hey, they've been working on it, they're going to try anyway. But, as I already said, Ubisoft already said no to trying with Breakpoint, and they gave up on it, which was wonderful. I mean, they're the first company that's just been like, nope, we're not going to do this. I mean, Square Enix and Nintendo, and now Pokemon. And then, this is another great one. Sony has filed a patent for NFT use, transfer of NFTs, and the sale of NFTs. So what they're patenting is a digital infrastructure to create a market/exchange for NFTs in their games. Oh my word. So yeah, Sony is serious. And we know too that Sony has acquired Bungie, and that Sony is pulling some of the cream of the crop off of Destiny and putting them on 2 separate games that are going to be coming out by 2025. Are they going to be NFT games? I don't know. Again, patents and making decisions in a company, because you got a board of directors and CEOs and other advisors. It takes time to do this stuff. So I'm hoping, all of this was decided when NFTs were still big, before all of the crypto crash and everything last year. But again, we'll see. Yeah, it's just not sounding good. So NFTs are still alive, and we have an example of this because somebody on Counter-Strike Go was willing to pay $150,000 on a gun skin. We also had people that were willing to pay almost $100,000, almost $50,000, almost $25,000 on Diablo Immortal. So again, where does this money come from? Where do how do these gamers have deep pockets? And I mean, they're the whales. Whether they're just spending this much to prove a point, they are still supporting the system. And folks, I really want you to hear this. If you want a particular outcome, whether it's in the gaming industry or your life or your job, your relationship, whatever, you have to do what is going to help guide it toward the result that you want. And if it's a relationship, have communication. If it's in the gaming industry, vote with your money. And don't try to be passive aggressive, okay? Don't be a dick either, but don't be passive aggressive, and don't see things as a joke. Take things seriously. Because I'm telling you, if we lose the war on NFTs and it really becomes a main staple in gaming, I'll probably quit at some point. And I'll just play the old stuff, right? Because yeah, NFTs, I just do not want that whatsoever. The industry has already changed so much, and in most cases, I don't like the direction that it's gone. And I see an opportunity right now in the industry where the big dogs like Ubisoft, Sony, Bungie, and EA, they're kind of wobbling on what they've been doing with live service and free-to-play and microtransactions and stores and stuff like that, which in some cases it's utilized okay. In other cases, like Blood Bowl 3, it's horrible. And in most cases, it's bad. And so we gotta vote, folks. Again, it's not just me, it's not just you, it's a lot of us. So hey, pass this channel on. This channel, again, is to focus on being passionate about gaming and sharing that passion, but also talking about the industry and how it's changed from where it was. I can certainly see it, other friends of mine can see it, but I don't know about you younger folks. And it's not to put you down. It's just to help educate you of where it used to be and how far it's fallen or where it's been falling to. And a lot of us older folks, we don't want it to go there. I'm almost 33 years old. I've been playing video games since 96. And man, to see where it's gone, it crested real nice. It was a golden age of gaming. And then it's just kind of fallen ever since. And I don't want it to fall anymore. I got kids. I want them to enjoy it. I want you folks to enjoy it too. And your kids. And our grandkids. And so on down the line. But yeah, NFTs are just a greedy way to produce less content for more money. And so are these microtransactions. And it started harmless enough, but now we got games like Diablo Immortal, and we got games like, um, Halo Infinite, where you buy colors. For Pete's sakes, it's colors. Nobody cares, right? And that stuff used to be free. We got the whole NFT market. And, oh my word, I mean, just where it's gone, it's just insanity. So it's time to stop it, folks. Let's see. Oh yeah, an update on Star Citizen, because I thought that was interesting. This is a game that has gotten $600 million from the investors and backers and people that have supported the game. And they released a patch that absolutely broke the game. Nothing worked. People couldn't log in. People were getting booted as soon as they could log in. It was hilarious. And, this game is like 13 years old. And they still haven't had a full release of the game yet. I mean, it's almost as bad as Good and Evil 2. I mean, that game is hitting like 15 years now. And there's been barely anything to show of it at all. And Good and Evil 2, I don't know if it's ever going to come out. And Star Citizen, I don't know if it's ever going to be a full game. I mean, I remember in college over 10 years ago that, Star Citizen was going to be this great, amazing, realistic, huge open world. Players could interact, blah, blah, blah. Kind of like EVE Online, even a competitor to EVE Online. And it hasn't even come close. So, yeah. Star Citizen is just another example where it's made, $600 million in a decade. I mean, think of that. That's on average. That's $60 million a year, give or take a few million. And that guy is just raking in the dough. He's made enough and produced enough to keep it going, but some of these people have invested too much. They're too invested. They can't quit. They can't walk away. And so that's, partly this is why I put that on there too, is that this is an important lesson, folks. I really want you to hear this if you've made it this far. Is that there are things in life where they're fun, or they're exciting, or they're enjoyable, or there's something that you really want to do. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But when it's taking your time, your joy, your sleep, your life, your money, when it's taken that stuff, it's okay to let it go. And I'm going to use an example from my own life. I dated this gal quite a while ago before I ever met my wife. And this gal was over in Texas. And so we did a long distance relationship. And before I knew it, it was 3 years in. And I thought, man, I gotta make a decision. I need to be able to meet this gal, meet her family, see where she lives, see who she is as a person. See if she's someone I'm really looking for as a wife and to be the mother of my children. And so I finally paid the money for a ticket and I flew over there for the 4th of July weekend. And I got to meet her and her family and see where she was and stuff. And, she's a great gal. But unfortunately, she just wasn't for me. She wasn't exactly what I was looking for. And, to be at that point, to make that decision at 3.5 years, that is a lot of time. I mean, that's 42 months of my life. And it was so hard for me to walk away because I had invested so much time and effort and energy and emotions and getting to know her. And it was super hard to walk away, but I did. Because I knew that wasn't who I was supposed to marry. And, I took time to figure that out. But it taught me too that there is a point in my life where if I invest enough time, effort, and money, I eventually won't be able to walk away. And so I've had a rule for myself ever since, is that when it gets to the point of 3 years, if I have not made it successful by then, if I have not made good progress, I quit. And yeah, she really showed me that. And I also did 5 years of college. I really tried to make it work. $45,000 down the drain. No piece of paper to show for it. No associates, no masters, no bachelors. 5 years, and I walked away from college and I went and got my first full-time job. And I just think what I could have done with that time, what I could have done with that money. But you know, I did learn from that too. So yeah, that rule that I've made for myself, 3 years. That's what I give something, and that's what I give people. 3 years. And if it doesn't work by then, I'm done. It's as simple as that. And that's been a really good rule to follow. It has saved me a lot of extra money, time, emotions, and pain. And so, get to know yourself, folks. How long before you need to walk away? How long before you need to quit on something and put your energy towards something that's going to have better results? Now, there's a few things where, yeah, you shouldn't quit. But, you know, that's another thing for another time. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, folks. That is March news. Quite a long one. Little over an hour. But, hey, not bad. Compared to be like, hey, this is going to be 20 minutes, and it's like over an hour long. So, I timed it pretty good. But, anyway, thanks for tuning in, folks. Again, don't forget, Twitch and YouTube. Twitch is Don't Tread on Thee. You can find me there. And then YouTube is at GamingGarbage22. And the profile pics are the same. It's at the top an Xbox symbol, at the bottom a PlayStation symbol, and in the middle DTOT. Don't tread on thee. And so, once you start to know what that symbol is, you can get to find me pretty quick. I'm still kind of tough to find on YouTube, but I'm there. Keep looking, I'm there. So anyway, hang in there, folks. Enjoy the rest of your night if you're watching, and as you're starting your week, you know, remember to take time to invest in yourself. Things are busy. Times are hard. And sometimes, too, even myself, it's just hard to be motivated. But, you know, you are worth it. You are worth the time and effort. So invest in yourself, in a skill, practicing an ability, focusing on a job, your education, whatever it is. And remember, stop living your life for other people. Live your life for you. Because if you're living someone else's life, you're not living yours. So I had to learn that one too. So yeah, I'll leave that thought with you guys. And with that, I'll see you on the next one.